Eli woke up slowly, the soft hum of the starship around him filling his senses. For a moment, he thought he was still dreaming, that the previous night's exhaustion had simply dragged him into a deeper sleep. But when he blinked and turned his head, the sight that met him froze him in place. The chamber was vast and unlike anything he had ever seen. Its walls shimmered with a metallic, almost liquid texture, and faint lines of light ran along the surface like veins of energy. The air was warm and carried a scent that was both alien and strangely comforting, a mix of ozone and something floral he couldn't identify. And then he realized he was not alone. Resting against his chest was her, the queen of the Zyrans, Queen Lorinth. Her presence was commanding even in sleep. Her skin glimmered faintly under the chamber lights, a pale shade of silver that seemed to ripple with every breath. Her head rested lightly on his chest, her breathing steady and calm. Panic surged through Eli's chest, but he forced himself not to move too quickly, not to startle her. How did this happen?" he whispered under his breath. The last thing he remembered was returning to his quarters after a long day of maintenance and patrol checks. Somewhere along the way, he must have entered the wrong room. He had heard rumors that the Queen occasionally wandered her ship in disguise, but he never imagined he would literally wake up to her sleeping against him. He tried to lift his hand slowly, careful not to disturb her, but the ship's hum was interrupted by a soft click. Queen Lorinth stirred, her eyes opening in a slow, deliberate motion. Those eyes, sharp, calculating, and impossibly intelligent, locked onto his. "You are not afraid," she said, her voice smooth and melodic, echoing slightly in the chamber. Eli froze. He swallowed hard. I'm not sure what I should be," he stammered. "I didn't mean—" She tilted her head, studying him like a scientist examining a curious specimen. "Your fear would be expected, yet you do not show it. Why?" "I guess I've learned that panicking doesn't solve problems," he said honestly. He couldn't stop himself. Humans had a habit of talking their way out of situations, even impossible ones, and maybe this was one of those times. "And I think honesty helps." The Queen's expression changed minutely, a flicker of surprise crossing her otherwise unreadable face. "Interesting. You are different from the others." Eli had no idea if that was a compliment or a prelude to punishment, but before he could respond, the ship shuddered violently. A warning siren blared through the chamber. Red lights flashed as the Queen lifted her head, now fully awake and alert. "Rebels," she said almost to herself, then her gaze returned to him. "You must follow me, quickly." Eli swallowed hard but nodded. He had spent months on this ship, learning its layouts, its systems, and its security protocols. But nothing had prepared him for this, running through the corridors beside an alien queen during an attack. The corridors were narrow, illuminated by shifting patterns of light that seemed to pulse in sync with the ship's energy. Guards appeared from hidden panels, their sleek, armored forms rushing toward the command deck. Eli noticed small humanoid devices, drones floating alongside them, scanning for intruders. He instinctively ducked behind a corner, motioning for the Queen to do the same. She would not need to hide, he thought, but he did it anyway. Humans had survival instincts. Sometimes it worked better than raw strength. The Queen's hand brushed against his arm, a light touch that was more acknowledgement than command. She followed his lead as they moved through the maze-like corridors. Eli noticed that her presence alone seemed to command attention. The guards parted instinctively, some casting curious glances at him. He realized something profound. She was powerful, but the human's ingenuity could match power with strategy. They reached a junction where multiple corridors converged, and a group of rebels suddenly emerged, their energy weapons raised. Eli froze for a split second, calculating his options. Humans weren't known for physical superiority, especially against aliens like the Zyrans, but they excelled in thinking fast under pressure. "Over there," he whispered, pointing to a maintenance hatch. The Queen followed without hesitation. They slipped inside just as the rebels' energy beams tore through the corridor they had been standing in moments before. Inside the hatch, the space was cramped and dark. Eli pressed a hand against the wall, feeling the vibrations of the ship's engines. He realized this was a perfect place for improvisation. With quick movements, he detached a small control panel and rewired the ship's emergency systems, rerouting energy flows to create a temporary diversion. "Your species adapts quickly," the Queen said softly, her voice tinged with admiration. Eli blinked. "We have to if we want to survive," he replied. Moments later, the corridor outside erupted in a series of flashes and loud bangs. Rebels were disoriented, their weapons malfunctioning due to the temporary energy interference Eli had engineered. The Queen's eyes widened. "You have saved us," she said simply. Eli felt a strange surge of pride, but it was mixed with fear. Saving the Queen wasn't just about bravery. It was about thinking fast, predicting outcomes, and using knowledge she likely never considered a human capable of. They moved again, faster this time, heading toward the ship's central command deck. Every step reinforced a truth Eli had always known. Humans might not be the strongest, but they could outthink almost anyone when cornered. At the command deck, chaos awaited. Rebel forces had breached the outer defenses, and alarms rang constantly. The Queen moved toward the control console, her movements graceful and precise. Eli followed, instinctively offering assistance. Together, they analyzed the ship's schematics, identifying weak points and strategic choke points. Eli suggested a plan that relied on human intuition rather than brute force. He knew the rebels would expect straightforward attacks, predictable maneuvers, but humans often succeeded by being unpredictable. He rerouted drones to create phantom threats, opened sealed compartments to funnel rebels into traps, and used the ship's energy systems in ways the Xyrans had never designed for defense. "Your mind is curious," the Queen said, watching him work. "You see possibilities where others see barriers." Eli smiled faintly. "That's just how humans survive," he said. "Hours, or what felt like hours, passed in this tense collaboration. Every time a rebel moved, Eli anticipated their strategy. Every time the Queen acted, he adjusted to complement her decisions. Slowly, the tide of battle shifted. Rebels faltered, their carefully planned assault disrupted by the ingenuity of one human and the commanding presence of a Queen who began to respect him. At one point, a large energy beam from a rebel cannon struck near them. Eli instinctively grabbed the Queen, shielding her as sparks rained down. The proximity was startling, but there was no fear between them now, only mutual recognition of each other's value. By the time the emergency system stabilized and the immediate threat subsided, Eli's hands were scorched, his uniform torn and his body exhausted. The Queen stood before him, looking calm and measured, yet something softer lingered in her gaze. "You have done more than I expected," she said quietly. "Perhaps humanity is more than we were told." Eli exhaled, leaning against the console. He had survived the first true test of human ingenuity against a superior species, and he had earned the respect of one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. For the first time, he realized that survival wasn't just about brute strength. It was about courage, intelligence, and the willingness to act when it mattered most. And for the Queen, a seed of doubt about her species' assumptions had been planted. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were clever. Humans were dangerous in ways the Xyrans had never imagined. The chamber fell silent except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Eli and the Queen stood side by side, an unlikely partnership born in the heart of chaos. Outside the observation window, stars streaked by as the ship adjusted its course. Tomorrow they would face more challenges, more battles, and more unknowns. But tonight they had survived together. And in that survival, Eli felt something stirring inside him, a quiet certainty that humanity, small and underestimated as it might be, could rise to meet any challenge and perhaps even change the galaxy. The calm after the storm lasted only a few minutes. Eli could still feel the vibrations from the ship's engines pulsing through the floor, each thrum a reminder that the Zyran starship Zithurian was alive, aware, and teeming with potential danger. The brief victory against the rebels had bought them time, but it was temporary. Eli knew that, the Queen knew it. Eli, Queen Lawrence said quietly, her voice smooth but edged with authority. The rebels will not stop. They know I survived. They will strike again, and next time they will not hesitate to destroy everything. Eli nodded. He had been trained for emergencies, but nothing in his time on Earth, or in the months aboard the Zithurian, had prepared him for this scale of chaos. Yet, for the first time, he felt something strange, a sense of belonging. Humans were not just passengers or negotiators on this alien ship. They could influence outcomes and sometimes even save queens. I know, he said simply, but we can outthink them. That's what humans do. We don't always have the strongest weapons, but we find a way to make them work for us. The Queen studied him. You are, unlike anyone I have met. Humans are supposed to be fragile, obedient, predictable. Guess we broke that stereotype, Eli said, a hint of humor in his voice despite the tension. She allowed herself a faint smile before turning back to the ship's controls. The corridor ahead of them was a mess of blinking lights, sparks flying, and the occasional ripple in the energy shields. The Queen's attendants and loyal guards moved with her, but it was Eli's human intuition that would guide them now. Listen, he said, crouching beside the main console. We need to anticipate their next move. They're predictable in one way, they'll strike where they think we're weak. But humans, we turn weaknesses into strengths. Watch this. Eli quickly began rerouting the ship's auxiliary power systems, tapping into redundancies he had discovered during routine maintenance. He programmed the drones to create decoy patrols, and he manipulated the ship's internal layout through the energy grids to set traps for intruders. His fingers flew over the controls with practiced precision, and the Queen watched silently, clearly impressed. You are clever, she said. I thought I had prepared for every scenario, yet you see possibilities I did not consider. Eli glanced at her. Sometimes it's just a matter of thinking differently. Humans survive because we adapt fast and without pride getting in the way. Their quiet moment was shattered by the sudden roar of weapons fire. The rebels had regrouped faster than expected. Several bursts of plasma tore through the outer hull, shaking the ship violently. Eli grabbed the Queen's hand, pulling her toward cover, his heart racing. Stay close, he whispered. I've got an idea. The idea was risky, completely improvisational, but humans thrived on the impossible, and Eli knew that. He activated a hidden emergency protocol, causing the ship's energy shield to fluctuate, creating temporary corridors of safety while trapping sections of the rebels in areas that would become inaccessible for a few precious minutes. The Queen raised an eyebrow. You are dangerous, she said, a rare note of admiration in her voice. Eli smirked. Only because I care about survival for both of us. The rebels were confused by the sudden changes, their movements hesitant. Eli used this brief advantage to guide the Queen and her loyal guards deeper into the ship. Every step they took, Eli anticipated the enemy's reactions. He had no weapons beyond basic maintenance tools, but strategy was his weapon. At a junction, a rebel squad ambushed them. Eli acted on instinct, grabbing a nearby control panel and hurling it into the squad. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and the rebels were momentarily incapacitated. The Queen moved with lethal precision, her hands guiding energy beams to disable their weapons without harming them permanently. Eli noticed the way she looked at him. You fight differently than we do, she said. Your methods are unpredictable. That's the point, he said. Predictability gets you killed. They reached the ship's observation deck. From there, they could see the vastness of space stretching endlessly, punctuated by the distant glows of nearby planets. Rebel ships swarmed in clusters, but Eli already had a plan forming. He pointed at several key locations. If we redirect the auxiliary power to the shields at these points and use the ship's drone systems to create false targets, we can make them waste their firepower. And then, while they're distracted, we strike. The Queen nodded slowly. You are extraordinary, Eli. I underestimated humans. Eli's chest swelled slightly. He had never been called extraordinary by anyone, let alone a galactic monarch. But there was no time for pride. The rebels were closing in. Using a combination of the ship's drone systems and the energy shield fluctuations, Eli orchestrated a series of distractions. Rebel squads found themselves chasing phantom threats, while sections of their fleet collided or malfunctioned due to the unexpected interference. Each move was calculated yet spontaneous, a balance of human ingenuity and intuition. The Queen observed quietly, but when a rebel cannon targeted the observation deck, Eli reacted instantly. He grabbed a control panel and hurled it toward the cannon's mechanism. Sparks erupted and the cannon's energy discharged harmlessly into space. You risk your life for me, the Queen said softly. Eli shook his head. Not just for you, for both of us and for the chance to survive. Humans aren't just clever for ourselves, we adapt for everyone who counts on us. Her expression softened, and Eli realized something profound. The Queen, a being of unimaginable power and authority, was starting to see humanity differently. Not as fragile, insignificant creatures, but as resourceful, courageous, and capable of extraordinary feats. Hours passed, or perhaps only minutes. Time felt distorted in the chaos. Eli and the Queen moved through the ship, sabotaging rebel systems, coordinating defenses, and outthinking every attempt at attack. By the time the rebels finally began to retreat, they had suffered unexpected losses and confusion, all orchestrated by one human and a Queen learning to trust him. Eli sank against the wall, exhausted but exhilarated. The Queen approached, placing a hand on his shoulder. You have changed the course of this conflict, she said. Your actions, they have saved my people, my ship, and perhaps even my reign. Eli smiled faintly, though his body ached. Sometimes all it takes is thinking differently. Humans aren't the strongest species in the galaxy. But we are clever, adaptable, and, well, sometimes lucky. The Queen laughed quietly, a sound that seemed to shimmer in the metallic chamber. You are also brave, and perhaps that is a strength your species possesses in ways we cannot measure. They stood together for a moment, looking out at the stars. The Zethurian had survived another day, and for the first time, Eli realized that humans were more than mere passengers in the galaxy. They could influence outcomes, inspire allies, and even earn the respect of rulers who once considered them insignificant. The Queen's gaze lingered on him. Perhaps your kind deserves more than I imagined, she said quietly. Eli nodded. We humans like to surprise people. Outside, the stars continued their endless journey. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers and full of unknowns. But in that moment, humanity had proven itself, not with overwhelming force, but with courage, intelligence, and the simple ability to act when it mattered most. The Queen turned to him, her expression unreadable yet somehow softer. Eli, there is much I have to learn from your people, and much I hope we can accomplish together. I'd like that, Eli said. Humans and Xyrans, maybe we're stronger together than apart. The ship settled into a steady hum, the alarm silenced, and the immediate danger passed. But the bond between human and Queen had been forged in the heat of battle, unspoken yet undeniable. Trust, respect, and the realization of human ingenuity had created an alliance that would echo through the corridors of the galaxy. And as they looked out at the stars, Eli knew one truth. Humanity had survived, had triumphed in its own way, and had earned a place among the stars, not as fragile creatures, but as beings capable of extraordinary courage and brilliance. The queen rested a hand lightly on his arm. "You have shown me much tonight, Eli. Perhaps the galaxy is ready to see humans not as weak, but as remarkable." Eli allowed himself a small, exhausted smile. "We've always been capable," he said. "We just have to be given the chance." Outside, the endless expanse of space stretched before them, a reminder of challenges yet to come. But for Eli, the first true human victory among the stars had been won, not through strength, but through intelligence, bravery, and the unpredictable brilliance of the human mind. And in the quiet hum of the Zethurian, a new chapter for humans and Zyrans alike had begun.